My name is Louise Chu. I am Executive Director of Digital Communications in University Relations. I'm excited to introduce our next guest speaker, Carrie Ko. Carrie is Director of Engagement at the digital agency Huge. There she works with companies and organizations to identify and define digital business initiatives that matter to users. Throughout her career, Carrie has led strategic digital projects across many industries, such as retail, media, and healthcare. And for the past 3 years at Huge, she's been leveraging research and a user focus to define product, brand, and marketing strategies. She's brought that expertise to several major projects at UCSF, which she'll be talking a little bit about today. One is a project for University Relations that helped us better understand the target audience for UCSF news and develop strategies for engaging them. And she's currently leading the team that's redesigning UCSFhealth.org and really reimagining the online experience for new and prospective patients. Please welcome Carrie Ko.
Hey guys, can you hear me? Good, awesome. I'm gonna try this out. Thank you, Louise, for inviting me here. I truly consider this such an honor to be here to share a little bit more about what audience and getting to know your users means for you and how you can leverage that for you. I'm just gonna, all right. Rock and roll. So there's going to be 4 key things that I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to give you a brief introduction to my background and Huge, the firm that I work for. I'm going to talk about what it means to take a user-first approach and a couple of work examples outside of UCSF. And then I'm going to dive deeper into UCSF personas and UCSF users and how we've leveraged that to make more meaningful impact through our work. And then finally, my goal really for the day is to talk about how some of this can be applicable to you in your day-to-day. So I think Louise already covered what I do. This is my background. It's really around product innovation and organizational transformation that leads into marketing, branding, and communications, all with a user-centric focus. As for Huge, I'll let this speak for itself.
What's up, schniznits?
This man, this dutiful man, has got this sense of devotion. One look, one touch of her hand could set the spiral in motion. I want it, can't have it, oh, I can hardly stand it. Oh, what's a man to do?
right, so obviously we do a lot of stuff, but it all comes down to this. At the heart of everything we do is that user centricity DNA. And it all actually started back in 1999, which in the digital and technology sphere is a long time ago. But we have never lost this approach and this perspective on infusing the user at the center of everything we do. And it comes down to this: helping businesses grow by creating experiences that people love. And again, your brand, Denise gave us such a great brand overview, but your brand doesn't exist in a silo. It is across all types of channels, all types of touch points, some that are within your control and some that are not in your control. And it's in many spaces and all these manifestations. And when you think about the user, keeping all of that consistent with the user in mind, it works. And it can span from digital products to campaigns to content, all in service of creating experiences that effortlessly meet people's needs. And they don't just want this, really. They have come to expect it. So now I want to break down a little bit of a process for you and give you some concrete examples around application. I think you guys have heard me say the word user a lot now, so if you got a penny for every time I said that. So far, we think about users in general in terms of demographic attributes, right? Age, income, education, maybe even the type of phone you carry. But there's a lot of assumptions that come with just knowing your demographic layer and identifying someone like that, right? I'm a female, young professional, young-ish professional, living in San Francisco, and one might assume that I like fancy coffee and maybe some avocado toast, which is true. But the one thing that you may not be able to know is how morally conflicted I might feel about the $10 toast. And that's kind of where personas come into play. Personas are defined by things like needs, wants, fears, the things that keep you up at night, your behaviors, your motivations, the things that you can't even say out loud or you can't construct in your own verbal expression because it's just inherently subconscious and it's a part of who you are in that sense, way beyond just labels. So getting to the root of user needs that are unmet is really at the core of how we try to triangulate opportunity and differentiation. But this aspect alone, too, can't be done in a vacuum. So what we need to pair against that are your real business goals and understanding how you can meaningfully support your business in a measurable way and what you as a business can provide and deliver to users that no one else can. Why something that is identified as a need is uniquely yours to step up to and to go meet. So this is a formula. It is used to guide our efforts, but you're probably sitting there thinking, that's nice, it looks pretty abstract to me, it's some pretty pictures. So we want to break it down into 5 steps that make it a little bit more actionable. And I want to talk about how these steps can be applied in your day-to-day a little later on. But first, I want to give you a couple of real-world examples on how that perspective of taking the user first really helps shape the opportunities and the delivery that you can create for users. Does anybody recognize this face or can take a guess at who this might be? Charming guy, huh? His name is Jason Pfeiffer, and he's actually the editor-in-chief of Entrepreneur magazine. And one of his job descriptions when he assumed this role is to write the cover lines for the magazine every month. Cover line is that line, the tagline that you see. Okay, I'm talking to a bunch of communicators. I didn't know what it was, but yes, you guys do. That was his job. And that was just his job because that was always the editor-in-chief's job. But he's inspired by the people that he talks about all the time and that he writes about all the time and that he podcasts about all the time. And he embodies this idea of relentless self-improvement. And with that mentality, he thought, I'm actually not the best marketing copywriter. I shouldn't be writing the thing that sits on our cover that is essentially our ad to get users to convert. So I'm going to go ask Huge what I should do about that. Maybe they have some ideas. So we said, we're going to go ask the users, naturally. So we actually went and found 12 Entrepreneur Magazine buyers from the past 3 to 6 months who bought a magazine off the stand to really understand what made them take notice, what made them actually purchase this product. And here's what we really found. People who bought this magazine saw themselves as entrepreneurs, and they felt this was their mini textbook with insider tips, how-tos, tips and tricks, things that they couldn't find anywhere else. Alongside that, we put the Entrepreneur Magazine cover against all of these other business magazine covers and dove in on that. And here's what we found. Turns out, people actually judge magazines by its cover. Who knew? And it's really polarizing. It's like a handshake. It gets judged and judged really hard. Second, for Entrepreneur, it's looked on as an inside tip provider. It's like your inside connection. It's like your little secret that no one knows about except it's on a newsstand. And it helps provide that entrepreneur a way to stay connected to the latest and greatest and all the entrepreneurs who are making it right now. And then at the end of the day, people buy it for its appealing content. So some of the things that people really love that's inside the covers are lists, case studies, and those how-to guides to be an entrepreneur. And so ultimately, with this name, we used it to guide a set of creative imperatives. The first one is, you gotta inspire the entrepreneur. You gotta be a manifestation of its hopes and dreams. Help it really get to that next level of how they envision themselves. You have to be able to elevate above the noise. There's a lot of competition. Did you see those magazine covers? Every one of them has some guy or some girl just sitting there with some words around it. That doesn't really stand out. Third, you gotta be as unexpected and unpredictable as the guy who's going to read you. Be truly unique and pioneer, and don't be afraid to break out of that mold. Be representative of all of the rule breakers who are actual entrepreneurs. So the Huge team came up with 16 mock-ups across 7 creative directions. You see a few of them here. It includes an elevation direction, a list direction, a narrative, and inside out. This is an instruction manual, so just being super clear with you're going to get some good information in here. And then there's another one that's around taking everything that's inside the covers and putting it on the outside to be that real teaser of what you're going to get. And so like when we look at this entire case study as a whole, if you think back to that framework that we had talked about, we have our entrepreneur as the user with the need of having a textbook or having some shortcut to carry it to that next level of entrepreneurial endeavor. That is a need. The business wants to sell magazines. Very clear. That business goal is pretty clear. And then the edge is being able to carry out that entrepreneur name and being as ballsy as your reader is. So the next product I'm going to talk about is called Twine. Now you just saw an editorial content play and how users can really help inform and influence how you can adjust and be much more meeting where your users are. Now this product example will do the same, although it's obviously a very different manifestation. I wanted to show that difference. So the client that asked us to come help with this literally asked us this. please come help us make this financial chatbot look pretty. To borrow from what Denise said earlier, you know, if you put lipstick on a pig, it's still a pig. And no offense to pigs. But what they're really asking us to help them do was to build a business with new customers that creates meaningful revenue in 3 to 5 years. And meaningful revenue for them was like in the hundreds of millions of dollars. So it was kind of a big deal. It was a much bigger ask than go make this look pretty, right? So again, we did our diligence with users. We started off with the hypothetical user that our customer had in mind, and they called it the modern family. And I don't know if you guys have looked up a definition or seen the show. The modern family is basically everyone living right now. It can take so many shapes and sizes and forms and ages and demographic geography, everything. It's so many things. So we said, okay, we'll start with something like that. We'll put some parameters around it. But we really started with a quantitative survey of over 2,500 respondents to try to narrow in more closely on what their definition of a modern family could be that could potentially be attracted to this type of product. From those 2,500 respondents, we narrowed in on more clear boundaries: age, geography, demographic, and then a couple of precision points on behavior. And from there, we recruited for qualitative interviews, so the persona types of conversations. We recruited 32 respondents, and out of that, we were able to identify 3 clear type of personas that would potentially be interested in our product. And after all of that, we prioritized one that made the most sense for this business. And that user was the family money manager. In our research, we found out that this person is usually fearing and staying up at night for the security, stability, and happiness and well-being of their families. So very, very inherently family-focused. The second thing is, turns out in every couple, there is a financial leader and a financial follower. Now, they may both not like finances and numbers equally, but in every household, someone takes the lead because you just have to. And someone will naturally follow because someone else took the lead. That's how it is in my relationship. And I'm happy to let them do it, but it's very, very natural that there is a leader and a follower. And when this is told to you, you'll find that in every situation when you look around, it's actually true. Who knew? Who thought of that? But it's true. That's one of the things that we uncovered. This group also has a tendency to save, and it kind of ladders back to point number 1. They're really, really, really worried about their family's security and future and happiness, so they want to be able to be prepared for it. But they're really also afraid of the unknown. And what falls into the category of the unknown is the word investing. So while they're really good at saving, not so keen on investing. So when we looked at these findings and this user against the landscape, what we really found were 2 things. One is that the current landscape of robo-advisors and financial advisors, they really missed the mark on using the word investing. Literally on every ad, on their website and everything was investing, 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 investing. Well, if that's scary to someone, they're gonna run. The next thing that they missed the mark on, there was not one financial product that does a savings and investing type of tool that catered to 2 people. Not one thing allows 2 people to share the screen and have these conversations and be transparent with how you make decisions and where you put funds to goal number 1, goal number 2, goal number 3, and so on and so forth. Not one thing. Your bank account does, but that's not an investing tool. So it's crazy when we found these dots, connected them all together, and we're able to position a product called Twine. This is the first financial savings app built for 2 people. And when you first open this app, collaboration becomes the theme from the very start. We use the word savings instead of investing, so it is much more welcoming and supportive. And then we also created the experience such that the first person who naturally takes the lead in the matters can create 90% of the goal, do the heavy lifting, do the work. And the second person just needs to click in, take a look, dig in as much as they want, don't dig in if you don't want, and then confirm and move on. That partnership, the level of leaning in or leaning out, is so much more up to the users, and now they have visual tools to help facilitate that conversation. And then finally, there is that conversational interface, that chatbot feature, that is really core to the experience, but it is warm, it's welcoming, it's supportive, and it's not like a financial advisor that uses all of these words that you have to look up, and it comes with, appendix and dictionary that you have to use in order to support that conversation. So this product launched in late 2017. It's now in the App Store. And when we think about how we leveraged our insights for this work, obviously the user is motivated by a product that helps them facilitate their financial conversations with their partners and also elevate them from savings to something a little more. Not scary, but a little more. The business wanted to drive new audience relationships and obviously lots of dollars at the end of the day. But the one thing I didn't mention at the beginning is that the competitive edge that allowed this company to do this is that they actually have 150 years of financial investing expertise. So it makes them uniquely qualified to make this experience easy to understand and also believable. So now I want to talk about UCSF users and how we've leveraged the idea of that user centricity and personas in our work together. So as Luis mentioned, we've done quite a bit of work together, and we even have a huge logo inspired by UCSF to prove it. Okay, so the two projects that we're going to talk about is one, the digital content playbook, and it was basically created to put together a way to more effectively connect and engage with target readers for the content from university relations. And then the second project is obviously the one that's ongoing right now, the redesign of UCSFhealth.org. So starting with the content playbook, as mentioned, the university team wanted to really engage its target news readers more effectively. But the problem was they said, our target users are 50 different user groups, which is kind of a big thing to tackle. So we said, okay, what does that mean? They said, well, we want to reach industry folks. We want to reach prospective students. We want to reach startup people. We want to reach politicians and activists and everybody, basically. We said, okay, but what are the ways that we can move away from demographic labels and really look at the ways in which we could be most meaningful to all of these people and figure out a common denominator in that way. So we redefined all 50 of those groups into two groups. People who were focused on social and civic change, so basically your neighbors, and people who were passionate about technology, health, sciences, people who are inherently would be drawn to the things that you write about already. And then we went to the users. And our methodology was to recruit a broad mix of folks who fell into one of those two buckets. They were across ages, across income, across ethnicity, even across the amount of time they've been in the Bay Area, because we know that that too is an important attribute of how you look at the world around you here. And we asked them about their behaviors and their perspectives relating to the topics that this team writes about. And we found 6 personas that were the most salient to our goals, which was to be more effective around our content. So one might ask, well, how do I know who to write for now? There's still 6 of them. So we created a matrix that helps us distill down into persona preferences. Some lean more around science topics, some lean more around social topics. Not to say that they're 100%, but there's a lean. Some are more receptive to factual-based information, and some are more receptive to emotional hooks and bringing that emotion to the story. And so using this chart, it's easier to kind of isolate on what potential persona would be the most ideal for you based on the topic that you're writing about, or based on the program that you're running, or based on the effort you're trying to create and find success with. So all of this got culminated into a 91-page content playbook. And I'll give you an example of what was included. This was one of the personas, and we pulled out the things, the characteristics and behaviors and attitudes that most strongly define this persona. And then we took some of the UCSF core principles, which should be familiar to all of you, and we borrowed them for tone and voice attributes. And you could see that for each of these personas, we're able to dial up or dial down and adjust accordingly how we use those core principles so that we can figure out how to write best for him. And we did that with all the personas. Finally, also leveraging the visual expression buckets, the UCSF visual guides, we're able to kind of classify which of these feel most engaging for this persona as well. And again, we did that for all of the various personas. And then we took a look at what we could do in terms of manifesting this into other channels like social to better reach them and to pull them in to engage with our content. And so a 91-page book is good, but how do you actually take this and make it applicable? How do you take the things on a page and turn it into something that you can create? So we took this, and the huge team worked with a small group of content creators in a workshop. And in that workshop, we took an existing UCSF article and split the room into 3 teams. Each team had their own persona. And with a copywriter, visual designer, and user experience expert, we were able to work with each of the 3 teams to reconstruct that story for 3 different personas. And when you could see the output of these, 3 stories, 3 different headlines, 3 sets of visual imagery, you could see how impactful that creating content with a specific user in mind can be so differentiated, can be so different. Same story, 3 manifestations, all catered because we understand that user so much better now. Okay, so now moving on to health.org. Here's the project. We're basically being asked to help create a seamless and unified front door for UCSF patients. And sidebar here, we, as Huge, this team, are so honored to be a part of this journey, to be able to just step in for a little bit, for a small amount of time, to do the type of work that you guys do, which is to stand for this brand and make this accessible, reachable, meaningful for the patients in the community that you serve. This really hit home hard for us, and I can tell you every single person on this project gets the goosebumps when we're able to work on this and make the impact that this is delivering. So thank you for that honor. So for this front door, we're defining patients as tertiary and quaternary patients, their family members and advocates, as well as referring patients. And when we remember back to the framework, we had to first define our business goals. And here they are. These are the ones that we have isolated down with the team. It's about improving the patient experience across the website, making sure that everything they come to the site to do, they can do. They understand where to find it. We are not adding more stress to their already stressful situation. That is the experience that we want to be able to deliver and elevate through this site. And then the other side of the coin is attracting patients and partners to UCSF, which I'm sure is a goal that you are all familiar with. So, for this work, we defined our 4 users as such. The tertiary care patient, we renamed the specialty care patient because we do that. It's easier for us to understand. The complex care patient is akin to the quaternary care patient. Then the family advocate and the referring specialist, and I'll step through each of them. The specialty care patient we see as someone probably in the Bay Area, has heard of UCSF, knows that it's a trusted organization, knows that it stands for good health and good care. And if he got referred here, he'd probably just say, yes, good, all right, I'll go there. He might do some cursory review and some cursory research on the site just to make sure that Dr. Bob got his medical degree, and Dr. Bob does treat the thing that he has, but that's probably it, not too extensive. But the complex care patient, we call internally the Dr. House patient. It's probably someone who has been through the ringer. They've gotten the runaround. They have been through so many doctors already, and they're trying to find the one that can actually help them and save them. It might be the person that lives 3 states away or on the opposite side of the country. We don't know. Maybe even on the other side of the world. But this person will likely need to uproot their lives to come here. And their consideration journey is much longer. They need to know, probably without a shadow of a doubt, that this is the right place for them, that this is worth it, that this is really the place that will be their hope. So we need to make sure that the site serves that specific need. It's a very long consideration, and it's a very different journey from the specialty care patient. Next is the referring specialist, and we understand this guy brings in about 70% of your business. So we want to make sure that even though he usually refers all his patients to Dr. Bob, if he needed someone to the right of Dr. Bob or to the left of Dr. Bob, and he needed to come to the site to find that, he can find it very easily, painlessly, and be able to transact with UCSF as easily as possible, and that nothing on the site gets in his way. And then finally, the family advocate. This is the person that is there for the patient and is almost as involved as the patient, him or herself, shy of getting the treatment. And we just found out in our most recent round of user research that this person, because they're not burdened by the actual sickness, is actually more engaged in research. They have more time to learn about things and to dig into the weeds. So we want to be able to provide an experience that not only helps them serve everything that their patient needs, but also what the advocate needs. So out of that, we facilitated a care circle, and it just kind of gives a graphic overview of how close each patient is, or how close each persona is to that center of care with the patients at the center. We also created, a really big overview journey map that outlines all the points of convergence, divergence, opportunities, emotional states, and touch points that a patient and these other personas could have along the journey. All of this to lead us to experience principles. There are 5 of them that we use to guide our design work. First, relentless pursuit of care. Empower with information, not overwhelm. Complement human with digital connection. Unite a complex health system. Use stories to connect, inspire, and reassure. And those principles are literally kept top of mind the entire time as we design, to keep us true to ourselves and true to the personas that we're designing for. And even across the design process, we will continuously check in with our users and doctors to make sure that our design hypotheses, the things that we have laid out, actually work the way we want them to and actually can be as seamless as we want them to be. We just completed this week our first round of user testing for this set of design, and we got really, really great feedback. And this is a bar that we hold ourselves accountable to, even though my organization has some of the best designers probably in the world. We still have to do this because it's all working hypotheses, and we always have to make sure it's right. Finally, what does all this mean to you? I've said a lot of stuff. I've given you some great examples. I kind of think you buy it, that users matter. But this is not easy to do, you might think, if you don't have all that time and that budget and that this and that, fill in the blank, whatever you want, right? Maybe, but this is just a framework. And it can be used to the highest fidelity and to the degree that we've used it in these examples, or it can be at a much higher level. And that higher level is how you can roll this into your day-to-day. So you guys saw this list of 5 things earlier on, and I'll kind of go through each of them in a little bit more detail. First is know your goals. Really understand how each thing that you're doing, each effort that you're putting in is laddering up to your business. What impact are you trying to create? Know that and know how you're going to measure that effort. Do you know that you're actually incrementally positive, or did you do something that is incrementally negative? You've got to know that so that you can know if you should turn left or turn right or pivot or adjust or do whatever. But you got to know your baseline and you got to know what you're gunning for. Second is understand your space. I've talked a little bit about taking a look around and understanding what your competitors are doing, what non-competitors are even doing. Go dig into the message boards and the posts and the comments and see what people are saying that works and doesn't work. It's a little time consuming, but it's so, so worth it because it tells you the trends and it tells you what's out there and it gives you so much more flavor and context to really create your angle. And then from that, you can provide that perspective of what can I uniquely provide that the next guy can't? And how can I position myself to a user that the next guy can't? And then use that information to really define your audience. Figure out who you're trying to reach, and not just who, but why. And once you figure out your why on why you're trying to reach them, do they want to be reached by you? The guy that doesn't care about science or medical advancements or anything like that, no matter how hard you try and how much money you throw at reaching them, will never click. They just won't. So know if you're going to resonate with them before you try to reach them. And if you think back to the digital playbook model, that's exactly what we did. We didn't say, okay, all politicians and all startup guys, come listen to us and engage with the articles. No, because some will never care. We want the guys who care about science and medical advancements to come listen to us. And that is a great overlay of interest versus offering. So when you think about defining your audience, think about the 3 to 5, doesn't have to be many, 3 maybe is a good starting point, of the most salient qualities that define that group. Just jot them down, literally, write them down. And then go talk to them. There is no more powerful tool, I truly believe this, than the power of first-person research, primary research, interviews. Don't call it an interview, just call it a chat. Spend 15 minutes and ask them a couple questions about their behaviors, their motivations, what they're looking for, what's missing as it pertains to the thing that you have to offer. And then listen and use that as you create, test, measure, and learn. Use the insights, do a first draft, go back to that person or persons, and ask again, does this feel right? Does this resonate? It's like our design testing. We thought it was right. We hoped it was right. Turns out we were mostly right, but there were a list of this long that we're going to make improvements on because they're little things. Just needed to go left or a little or right a little. But it's going to make the end product so much better and so much stronger. The one thing I will warn against is don't spend forever testing and asking. You know, you got to put it out there because your sample size of 1, 2, or 3 may not actually be perfectly indicative of the broader population. But use it to your advantage to optimize and make things better. Thank you. So I think we have some time for questions, or no? Anyone has any questions?
So for your research, what generally, I can accomplish everything, but what's a good starting point? Methodologies that you use?
Yeah. I think it depends on what it is that I'm trying to get a result from. So am I trying to test for content? Am I trying to test for product vision? It really depends on can you give me more on what you're trying to achieve?
I've been studying personas for about a year and a half.
Yeah.
And these are great corporate models. And I know that we have personas even within internally the UCSF community. We have our easy buckets are faculty, staff, and students, which that's kind of like beaten to our head. But we know that those are not homogeneous groups.
Right.
So within that, we can make anecdotal assumptions. But if we want to really go deeper, given our situation, low budgets, not a lot of time,
Right.
tips how to do that better with agility and with the budgets that we have.
Yeah. Okay, so I understand your question. I think it's a really, really great question. When you started your question, you had said we have some very clear groups like students and faculty and so on and so forth. To me, I would not call those personas. I would call those user groups. And the difference again is a demographic label, like something I am versus who I am. And personas I would classify as the who I am. Who I am is someone who is passionate and cares deeply about medical advancements, the sciences, and technology. That is who I am and not what I am. So I think that in order for you to take that first step in kind of dicing it up a little bit more, it's to find characteristics and common denominators across your folks on who they are, that those internal definitions that define personas against needs and wants and behaviors as opposed to their label of what they are. Yeah. And then from there, I think it's however you want to slice that pie, start asking questions. Figure out who's in your immediate circle that you can just go ask 3 to 5 questions. Do a walking 15-minute, let me just talk to you and ask you a couple questions. That's really all it takes to start getting enough data points so you can form hypotheses to use in your favor. Thank you, guys.